Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to me today. I'm Amanda Lang, and today we're going to talk about nuclear energy. I'm here on behalf of North American Young Generation in Nuclear, and so we're an organization of people who are interested in nuclear technology. And today we'll be talking about this is meant for 4th and 5th grade students, and we have a drawing contest. So we're going to learn about fission, and we're going to ask you guys to draw something you learned during this presentation, and then have an adult help you submit it, and you might win some cool prizes. So what we're going to talk about is fission, and so fission is nuclear energy, and how nuclear energy can help environmental and societal help meet the environmental and societal needs of the future. So the prizes for this contest are, we have first, second, and third place. First place will get some science books, a 3-month subscription to a science kit program called Kiwi Company, a t-shirt, and a treasure box for their entire class. Second and third place will get a 1-month subscription to the science kit, also NAYGN t-shirts, and then all 3 winners will have a set of books sent to their school library that all of their classmates can use. Alright, so our topic is 2020 fission, bringing nuclear energy into focus. Before we get into nuclear energy, we need to discuss some basics, such as energy. So what is energy? There are a lot of different forms of it, and we'll get into several of those in a second, but essentially it's the ability to do work. So we need to move something, is mechanical energy, or cause a physical change. So some examples: chemical energy. When you eat an apple, it converts the chemical energy stored in the apple in the food, and then that conversion allows you to run and jump in terms of kinetic energy. Mechanical or motion energy, a good example of this is a roller coaster. So when you're at the top of the roller coaster, you have a lot of potential energy, and then that is converted to a kinetic energy as you go down the slope of the roller coaster. Light is nature's way of transferring energy through space. Energy moves very, very quickly. And it also includes part of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can't see. So there's radio waves, X-rays, microwaves that we can't see that travel in the same way that light does. And energy from the sun travels 93 million miles to Earth as light waves and UV rays. Thermal energy. An example of this is when you rub your hands together. So try it with me. Rub your hands together really fast, and you'll notice that they get warm, and that's from the friction of your hands moving past each other. Sound is another form of energy. When I clap my hands, the sound waves reach your ears, and so those waves are another form of energy. And electrical. So this is an outlet. We all have outlets in our houses, right? And so they're very useful. But electrical energy, what that is actually moving electrons. And so these electrons can cause all of our devices to work. So motors to spin, lights to come on, fans to spin, all that good stuff that you use electricity for. Okay, so that kind of covers energy. Now we're going to talk about what atoms are. So atoms are the building blocks of everything around us. Chair you sit in, air you breathe, you are made up of atoms, I'm made of atoms, and they're super, super, super tiny. So smaller than you can see. If you had a powerful microscope, you might be able to see on the atomic level. And so atoms are actually composed of three things. So we have protons, neutrons, and electrons. So protons and neutrons are in the nucleus, so the center of the atom. Protons are positive, neutrons are neutral, no charge. And then around the outside are orbitals, and those are electron orbitals, and electrons have a negative charge. So how many atoms are in a grain of salt? So we said atoms were super tiny, and a grain of salt we usually think of as pretty small. So how many atoms do you think are in that one grain of salt? So the answer is 1.2 times 10 to the 18th. So it's a billion atoms, or a million trillion atoms. So it's a lot of atoms just in that tiny grain of salt. So atoms are super tiny, and they make up everything around us. They're also a cool thing to draw. So I will demo that here. This might be something you want to try for your drawing contest. So you can draw some bigger circles. These are neutrons. And then draw some other big circles. These are protons. And what I'm drawing here, this is the nucleus. And then we need to add in the electron orbitals, right? So those are the orbitals, and then you add your electrons. And then you have an atom. So something for you guys to try. All right, so we're going to talk next about nuclear energy. So here we have a big atom, a uranium atom. So it's a pretty big atom, but remember atoms are super small. And we're going to split that atom. So we're going to take the nucleus of the uranium atom, and we're going to fire a neutron at it and split it. And then we get energy. And so this splitting process is called nuclear fission, which is what happens in nuclear power plants. And from that we can actually make electricity. So there's also a different type of nuclear reaction that doesn't follow this diagram. That's called fusion. And this is what's going on in the sun. So fusion is taking two small atoms and fusing them together. And so they combine and release energy. And that's the process that powers our sun. All right, so what do we do with those nuclear reactions going on in a nuclear power plant? Well, we harness that energy from fission in the nuclear reactor. And so we have the reactor here. This is a diagram of a power plant. So inside this nuclear reactor, there are billions of nuclear reactions going on. And these are occurring every second. And so that energy is harnessed inside the power plant and it's converted to electricity. And so what we do is we heat up water. The water turns to steam, and the steam turns this big, kind of like a pinwheel. It's called a turbine, but it turns a turbine, which then turns a machine called a generator. And that generator is what makes electricity. The electricity goes through transmission wires, and then it goes to your houses, your schools, your cities to turn on the lights and everything else we use electricity for. So look around the room right now. What's something that uses electricity? Almost any man-made instrument probably uses electricity. You can use electricity to learn biology with microscopes, drive an electric vehicle, an electric car, control your air conditioner with a thermostat, watch TV, keep your food cold in a in a refrigerator, talk to your mom on the phone, or play some cool phone games, or take pictures of your dog. My dog is actually, she's right here. So she likes to pose for pictures. You can use it to play with your computer or turn a light on in your room at night. So, question for you guys to consider: why might you not be able to plug into a power source? Maybe you think about the car, and when it's moving, you can't plug it into the wall, right? So that then you need some way to store that energy. All right, so we talked about how nuclear, do you want to go down? We talked about how nuclear energy is made, but there's actually other ways to generate electricity as well. So, some examples: coal plants burn coal to make electricity. Natural gas power plants burn gas to make electricity. Hydroelectric power plants, these are also called dams. They use moving water to turn turbines to make electricity. Wind farms make electricity by using the wind to turn turbines. And we have some pictures. Solar farms, they use solar panels. So sun comes down, there's an effect that goes on, photoelectric effect, and then you get moving electrons. So we use solar panels to make electricity. And then biomass plants. Biomass is burning organic matter. So things like wood or manure. Do you guys know what manure is? It's animal poop, right? So you can burn those things, and also, and then kind of the same process as how we burn these other materials, you can generate electricity from there. And then nuclear power plants, which we talked about. Okay, so this year is 2020, and we're going to talk about energy today and in the future. And so there's going to be some challenges. And we're going to talk about 4 major challenges, but what do you guys think the challenges are for providing electricity to everyone in the world? Well, one is we're going to have to meet those needs, and our culture, our societies rely on electricity, and so we need reliable electricity. And as we become very dependent on it, there's a lot of problems when electricity isn't available. So think about what's the worst thing that would happen if you lost power. Maybe just for a little bit, you'd probably be okay. You know, the heat would turn off. Maybe your lights would turn off. You'd have to find some candles or maybe flashlights. But if you didn't have power for a very long time, you'd have more problems, right? Like your food might go bad in the refrigerator. Your phone, you wouldn't be able to charge it. All those types of things, right? So we might lose power to cell phone towers. We can call people. Hospitals might lose electricity, and then they wouldn't be able to treat patients. So it's very important to have reliable electricity. Now, in terms of the different types of electricity, nuclear is the most reliable. All power plants have some max amount of energy they can produce. And nuclear provides 92% of that max energy. So it provides a lot of energy most of the time, right? And so the other forms can't provide as much energy. They can't be on quite as much as nuclear power plants. So the next closest is natural gas, and that's about 55% of the time. Okay, so why do you think other forms of electricity can't make electricity as frequently as nuclear? So one of the reasons is that coal and natural gas plants are prone to needing to stop making power in order to have things that are broken be fixed. So this is called maintenance. Solar farms, they need the sun shining on them to make electricity, otherwise that process can't work. And wind farms need wind to make electricity, and it's not always windy. Also, hydro plants need water to move through. And so if you're if it hasn't rained in a while, that's called a drought. And so then you might not be able to use your hydroelectric or your dam. Now, nuclear is reliable because they don't require the same amount of maintenance as coal and natural gas plants. And they don't require the sun to shine, they don't need the wind, and they don't need rain to fall. So they're on all the time. Now, as time goes on, our world is requiring more and more electricity, and population is increasing around the world. And therefore, more electricity is going to be needed overall. As other countries and rural areas become more modernized, they begin using more electricity. As technology advances, we begin using more things that require electricity. So more houses are built. More steel is needed for construction. More people drive electric cars. More people use cell phones. There's more people who need air conditioning, and more roads are being developed. And so with more people in the world and more technology being used, we need more electricity, and we call this demand. And so we need to be able to produce enough electricity to meet demand. So nuclear power plants have that capability to meet society's power demands, no matter where they are. So large-scale nuclear power plants produce enough electricity to power millions of homes. The largest power plant in the United States is in Arizona. It's called Palo Verde. And that one power plant can provide power for 4 million people. So another type of nuclear technology is called a small modular reactor. And so this is a smaller power plant. But basically they can be located in a variety of areas and then provide, they can meet demand for an area like a rural area, something that has fewer houses, fewer people, a lower electricity demand. Okay, so another thing to consider is when we make electricity, we're going to have an impact on the environment, and we want to minimize this impact. And so what are some things that you guys know about in terms of environmental impacts of humans? Have you heard of climate change or the greenhouse effect? So that's what we're going to talk about too. Challenge number 2 is protecting the environment, specifically by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So greenhouse gases can build up in the Earth's atmosphere, and when they build up too much, the Earth gets warmer and warmer. So it's kind of like, have you guys ever been inside a greenhouse on a sunny day? The sunlight comes in, and then the air is all staying within the glass greenhouse, right? And so it gets warmer and warmer and warmer. And so that is kind of what's happening to the Earth, is that we are trapping we're releasing gases that go into our atmosphere, and we kind of make a blanket around the Earth. And so the sunlight comes in and heats up the Earth, but then nowhere to go. All right. So there are a lot of things that produce greenhouse gases, and the most common greenhouse gas is carbon dioxide. But there are other types. And so just going over how we produce carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases, the 3 major areas are transportation, electricity, and industry. And then there's also some in agriculture, and then commercial and residential. So we're going to talk about electricity. because electricity production is a large contributor to greenhouse gases, and nearly 100% of the greenhouse gas emissions produced from electricity can be stopped by using technology that doesn't produce greenhouse gases. So the types of electricity that do not produce greenhouse gases are solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear. All right. So this is just saying that nuclear produces 0 greenhouse gases along with wind, solar, and hydro. Okay, challenge number 3. We're going to talk about recycling. Why is it good to recycle? It's good to recycle because it reduces the amount of natural resources that we must consume. So if we recycle paper, it reduces the amount of trees that must be cut down to make new paper. And so recycling helps to save the environment. By reducing the amount of natural resources we consume, we save plants and animals, and it preserves the environment so that we can go to parks and rainforests, and future generations can enjoy those spaces as well. And it's good for the whole world. And so in general, we want to recycle to reduce the amount of natural resources we are consuming. So a way to reduce the amount of natural resources we're consuming is by using more fuels that contain more energy. So think about a campfire. And we talked about different forms of energy earlier. So a fire is releasing energy, right? That's heat coming off that fire. You might, warm up your hands, toast some marshmallows. We're all familiar with a campfire. And so the wood is burning and it's releasing a certain amount of heat. And we know how much is going to be released. Now, if we have wood burning, and then say we had the same amount of weight of coal burning, it would be 50% more energy. So coal would give off more energy, 50% more energy. If we had the same weight in gasoline, it'd be 187% more energy than wood. So a lot more energy. If we had the same weight but in natural gas, it'd be 244% more energy than wood. So that'd be way more energy than wood. So the next one I'm going to ask is, how much more do you think nuclear has, percent-wise? So it might surprise you, but nuclear has 24 million, yes, 24 million% more energy than wood. So it has way more energy than wood, or any of these other types of fuel. Another way to think about it is to think about a car. So let's say you have a car and 1 gallon of gas. How far can that car go? Approximate 25 miles is a good approximation. So a car can drive about 25 miles. So think about how far away 25 miles is. Maybe the next town over. Just think of something that's 25 miles away. And that is how far we can go with that amount of energy in gasoline. Now, if we had that same weight as a gallon of gas, but in nuclear fuel, and we could convert it in the same way, but just how much energy that nuclear fuel, how far could that nuclear fuel get us? And so the same weight of 1 gallon of gas could drive that same car 2 million miles. And so that's like driving to the moon and back 9 times. So there's a lot of energy in nuclear fuel. And so it's because you have these very tiny atoms that you are splitting and they're giving off a lot of energy, and you have billions of those reactions going on. And so nuclear is a very energy dense resource. So one extra bonus is that nuclear energy, in addition to having all this energy very condensed, it can actually be recycled. So when you burn wood, coal, natural gas, there's no energy left once it's been burnt. But when we use nuclear fuel in most of our reactors, we don't use up all that energy. And there's actually about 90%, so most of the energy remains in the fuel. And so with the right technology, we can recycle. Just like we recycle paper, we can recycle nuclear fuel and reuse it and get more energy out of it. And so it's similar to like recycling paper products or plastic bottles. We're reusing what we've already made, and so then we avoid consuming more natural resources. All right, so nuclear fuel can be recycled. Now we're going to transition to, sorry, I was a bit behind on my slides. We're protecting the environment, natural resources, nuclear fuel is recyclable. And now we're going to get to the 4th challenge. So what we're going to talk about here is land development. So when we build a road, a house, a building, a power plant, construction process requires natural land to be changed in order to build something on it. And so we have to remove trees or plants or dirt and replace it with concrete, steel, gravel, man-made things. And so you can see before and after. Before we have lots of green spaces, and after it's all been flattened and the buildings have gone up, and so we don't have those green spaces. So do you think there are problems when we develop land? The answer is yes, right? So maybe you guys can think about some of those. I'll list a few here. But animals might have to find new homes. You have to remove plants, which means less vegetation. And greenery is good for removing carbon dioxide, remember, because plants breathe carbon dioxide. So that's actually, plants are very good for the environment, right? And also plants have less, if you remove plants, there's fewer plant roots in the soil, and those plant roots actually help keep the soil where it is. And so you have soil erosion if you remove plants. And soil erosion can lead to landslides and sinkholes and problems in groundwater. So there are some ways to prevent these things from happening, but the best way is to not develop our natural resources unless we really need to. So that is one way that nuclear has an advantage over other carbon-free electricity sources, specifically when it comes to the amount of land they use. So a nuclear power plant, if you had one about the size of a football field, that would have enough energy for 2,000 homes. Now, if you wanted to power 2,000 homes, but with solar panels, you would need 46 football fields covered in solar panels. Now, if you wanted to say, okay, I want to power those 2,000 homes, but I want to use wind turbines, you would need 200 football fields full of wind turbines to power those same homes. So nuclear power needs way less land to provide electricity, and this means that there's fewer animal habitats being disrupted and fewer plants need to be removed, and less erosion and less groundwater problems. Okay, so we're getting to the end We've focused on nuclear energy today, and we've learned nuclear energy can help supply electricity for the future and protect the environment while doing it. We talked about how nuclear energy can help us produce electricity for the future. Talked about fission. We talked about how reliable nuclear energy is, and that it's on 92% of the time, far more than any other electricity generation type. We learned that nuclear energy can meet the demand for electricity for everyone, everywhere. And then we shifted to the environment, and we talked about the 3 ways that nuclear helps preserve the environment. So nuclear can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions or carbon dioxide, reduce carbon dioxide. Nuclear can help protect natural resources, and nuclear can help prevent land development. Okay, so for the 2020 drawing contest, NAYGN drawing contest, the topic is 2020 Fission, bringing nuclear energy into focus. We want to explain how nuclear energy can help meet the needs of the future, meet the energy needs and the environmental needs of the future. We want to show people that nuclear must be a part of that future in order to meet our energy and environmental demands or our needs. So think about the challenges we talked about today, where nuclear energy can help us going into the future, and draw your pictures showing how nuclear can help us now and in the future with our energy and environmental needs. So this next part is for parents. So students will be drawing on a picture, and then please have a parent use their phone to take a picture of that drawing and email it to schooloutreach@naygn.org. And then in the body of this email, please include the student name, their t-shirt size, grade, and age. Please also include the student's mailing address so that we can send them prizes, and the school's mailing address so that we can send the library books to the school. And then the teacher's name, so we can take care of the class treasure box. So you can get more information online, naygn.org/committee/public information/student education, and you can view this presentation again if you want. If you want to, you can download it. You can also email questions to chris.chance@duke-energy.com for questions. And just to reiterate, this is for the 2020 NAYGN drawing contest.